Good, okay, thank you. Good evening again. I'd like to call the committee of the whole for the Village of Cary for February 21st, 2023 to order with roll call, please.
Covelli?
Here.
Weinhammer?
Here.
Collier?
Here.
Dudek?
Here.
McAlpine?
Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now moving to the public comments, where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I had nobody sign in for that. Is there anybody here who would like to address the committee of the whole? Go ahead and close public comments at 6:07. We have two things on the agenda tonight. The first one is a discussion regarding Liberty Outdoor Advertising sign replacement. Brian, you can take this?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor and Village Board. The item for discussion this evening is regarding Liberty Outdoor Advertising's existing billboards, which are on Route 14 on the east end of town. As the board may recall, back in September of last year, initial discussion was had before the board regarding the potential replacement of the signs. Liberty Outdoor Advertising was looking to potentially replace those signs with a electronic message center sign. This little history, the existing signs that were installed back in 2016 with approval from the village board. The sign that's on the Union Pacific right-of-way received a variance to be located within the M district and was about 72 square feet in size on each sign face. Likewise, the existing sign, which is on the property of 65 Northwest Highway, received a conditional use for a billboard sign in the B2 district at that time. Again, same size sign, 72 square feet for each sign panel. The proposal is seeking to replace the two sign locations with a new electronic message center sign, potentially at the property of 65 Northwest Highway. As you can see on this slide, staff provided the company information on our existing entryway signage, or our proposed entryway signs that will be installed this year, to allow for them to potentially match the design or materials that are utilized on those signs. So the entryway signs are shown on the left-hand side of the slide, and then there's two options that they've come up with for potential designs for the proposed replacement sign. The video, which is playing in the lower right-hand portion of the sign slide, now shows the quality of the image that would be presented on the image. Just an example of another sign that the company has installed elsewhere in the region. So the proposal, just for discussion purposes this evening, is to review the concepts as proposed, and should the village board be open to the petitioner going through the zoning process. Obviously, there would be a certain relief that would be required for the signs. For our code currently does not allow billboard signs, so a variance would be required, as would a conditional use for the electronic message center portion of the sign. As proposed, the sign in the packet that was provided would be dimensions of 200 square feet per sign face, which would be larger than the signs that are currently in existence at those locations, 72 square feet, and they would be a double-sided signs facing both east and west. Representatives from Liberty Advertising are here as well. They can provide additional information as far as their proposal for the signs and what they'd like to do.
Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Angela Javer, 23 Jefferson Lane, Cary, Illinois.
Brian Javer, 23 Jefferson Lane, Cary.
We just want to first start off by thanking the village for allowing us to come in and present this to you guys. I know that first impressions are a huge thing, and unfortunately our village has not had a good first impression on digital billboards. So we are hoping by the time we are done here today that we can rewrite kind of the first impression that you guys had. We brought in our team from Media Resources to come and answer all of your questions. We know you guys have lots of questions on light pollution and ambient lighting, and they can do a much better explanation than we can with explaining that. So we'll bring them up in just a second, but if you want to address the
So I did want to come in real quickly because there was some conversation between Brian Simmons and us about the size of the sign. And initially, there was kind of a miscommunication. My intent was to try to recreate as close to the same size as we currently have. But when it all had worked out and Brian got what he got, it came out as 10 by 20. It can't, because of the way that they're put together like Legos, there's like these modules that all kind of come together to make it. It can't be exactly 6 by 12, but it can be like 6 and some inches by like 12 or 13 and some inches, so we can get real close. So I wanted to kind of upfront disarm that, that concept. And with that, why don't we bring up the guys?
Yeah.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Tom Sampson. I am with Media Resources. I am based out of Columbus, Ohio. Our company is based, it's a North American company. We are based just south of Toronto, Canada. So we manufacture all of our displays up there. We also have a U.S. headquarters that sits just outside of Charlotte. So we do digital displays for large billboard companies such as Lamar, Outfront, Clear Channel, and we also have displays, on-premise displays all over, like you've seen up here, the World Harvest Church that was up here previous. This is one of our, this is actually out by me in Columbus. This was one we just installed about a year ago. The resolution on this one is a 10 millimeter of what we call SMD, so it's a surface mount digital. That one is presently, it's about a 6 by 22, I believe, height-wise, just to kind of give you some scale. And we're here, we're answering any questions you may have. Almir is also an expert. He works with me at Media Resources, so we're here to answer any questions you may have.
I'll open it up to any board questions.
I'll ask first. Are you only talking about doing the digital in this spot right now and not in the railroad tracks, or both?
Correct. So I'm willing to take down both locations in exchange for only one location at Lake Julian.
However, I would ask that the board consider allowing us to keep up the tracks location, as it did just go under a year agreement. That'll be starting in early March. We would like, and it's for a local carry business. It's for Lucky Pennies to advertise on the east-facing board, and then they also would like the west-facing board to advertise Lucky Lucy's in Fox River Grove.
And obviously, we'd be willing to put in writing that upon the termination of that contract, it comes down.
Okay. Any other questions?
Sure, I do. Couple quick questions. First of all, and I just don't know if we know this off the top of our head, does anyone know what the digital sign that Mixed Media has? What's that size? I'm just curious, because I know we were all concerned about it, and I don't think it was as concerning as we thought it was going to be, so I'm curious what size that is.
So that is a 12 by 24, and they are using a 19 millimeter bulb. So there's 19 millimeters in between each one of their bulbs, and they are utilizing a through-hole technology, which is like a light bright. So their colors and their picture clarity is not near as clear as what we are looking at. Now, in the video on the previous slide, that was presented as a 10 millimeter, but Almir brought in technology that is 8 millimeter, which is ideally what I would like to propose to the board that we go with, because the picture quality is going to be so much clearer. I don't know if you've driven on Route 90, but a lot of those billboards, like, sometimes you can't tell until the billboard flips if it's a digital or if it's
static, or yeah.
correct. And we want to bring the best, not just throw up something.
Okay, so another quick question that I have, and it's just a kind of a pet peeve of mine, and we've talked about it. I want to make sure material that's going to be used. I love the idea that you're working with the same designer that's doing our signs, correct?
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that there's no ambiguity with regards to what type of material is going to be utilized so that it looks
The exact
top-notch.
material that you guys are putting in the downtown area will be the exact material that our signs are made out of. The company is also going to do the install that you guys are that you guys have already approved. We have gone, the reason why it has taken us so long since September is we've really taken the time to do our research and make sure that we have found the best company who's going to offer the highest quality digital, as well as a company that's going to perform with the beautification of it as well. And
Okay. What about, are you going to have any businesses that you're not going to allow advertising on that? I mean, I don't know, legally what it is, but I
So,
certainly
Yeah.
am curious about that, what's going to be out there in the community.
So, and this will come through when we give you a copy of the lease agreement and things like that, but we generally do not, and that's in our contract, no alcohol, no cigarettes, no adult clubs, things like that. If there are things that you would like added to that, certainly we're amenable to that.
we live in this town. Our kids go to school in this town. We don't want something up that we wouldn't want our own kids to see.
We'd like to not be hated in our own town,
That's a good goal.
Yeah.
Also, too, the advantage for the digital is that if there was an emergency, the village would have first priority to post something on that. And it's a very quick turnaround. The gentleman can explain how quickly we can get an ad up for you guys and what that process would look like as well.
And that's in the lease agreement as well with the clients.
Would you also be willing to do anything for community activities that are going on to pop things up, whether it's through the chamber, whether it's through the park district? I'm just some community throwing it in every once in a while.
So there's kind of an unofficial policy at Liberty that was instituted by my predecessor, kind of my third father, Jack Schaefer, which is 10 to 20% of our annual postings are gifted. So if there's a local nonprofit, if there's, I forget what the annual event you guys do that's real big is.
It used to be the Main
Used to be
Street
Cary
Fest.
Main Street Fest.
Yeah,
It's
you know.
coming back.
Yeah, stuff like that, absolutely, especially if it helps people, or weather emergencies, or road construction, boil orders, all that kind of stuff, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself that I have to be honest and say when they first were bringing that one out to 14 there, I was very much, I don't think I'm going to like this. It's going to be distracting. It's going to be that. I don't find it to be. And I see that this is the future. This is, this is forward thinking. No one wants to put up a sign and taking off the vinyl or however you're putting that on these days anymore. But as I said, my main concern is to make sure that the quality of construction conforms to what everyone is expecting so that there's no misunderstanding as to what we're looking to see.
Hence why we thought going with your designer and your installer would be a good choice.
I think that's great. Those are my questions for now.
I would like the professionals to explain quickly the difference between SMD and Throughhole, because what you're seeing over at Thorntons currently is Throughhole technology, and there's a big difference, and I'm going to leave it to him to describe.
Let Elmir do it.
Sure. And
We'll let Elmir
I
talk.
brought a toy. Can I pass it around so you can see? It's a little heavy, so be careful. That's called SMD, which basically means that it's a surface mount diode. So you see the little white lights? So in each one of these white packages, there are three pixels, a red, a green, and a blue. They reside inside of that diode that you see there. The big difference is this, is that the light blends inside of the diode to create the light that's coming out, compared to Throughhole, where you'll have an individual bulb that's a green, an individual bulb that's a red, and an individual bulb that's a blue, and they need to blend outside. Then it gets impacted by the sun and all other types of environmental factors that make the image not as clear. When you have an SMD and all of the light gets blended inside of the package, first of all, it doesn't get impacted by the sun, and you have less black in between all of the diodes, which makes your contrast ratio much, much better. An example of the one that's out there now, that's a 19 millimeter Throughhole, a display like this, you're currently holding what's called a 10 millimeter. This one's an 8 millimeter. When you say 10 millimeter, and the other one's a 19 millimeter, it's actually almost 4 times the amount of diodes, because it's 10 this way and 10 vertically and 10 horizontally, meaning millimeters between each diode, where the one that you have currently installed, it's 19 millimeters horizontally and vertically. So when you do the math, it's almost 4 times the amount of diodes. So your image is going to be crystal clear. It's going to be almost like you're looking at a TV screen, basically.
Yeah.
It's
It's
be
kind of
fantastic.
kind of the difference between, for those that are old enough, those of us that are old enough now to remember the old tube-style TVs where it kind of looked grainy. That out there looks grainy. This looks like your TV at home more. So it gives you that much more clarity. And the other big thing we do is out there, they're trying to get clarity by pushing the brightness. We don't have to push brightness to keep our clarity. So you don't get that blaring when you're coming down the road, especially probably after dark with that. And probably that one's old enough that they do not have, say, like a redundant photo cells in them that's always monitoring brightnesses to keep it at a certain brightness.
One of the things that's really important to us, especially when we work with municipalities and towns, that many of them are involved in beautification acts. You go through all the trouble of making a beautiful display with beautiful structures, and then display fails. So one of the things that we've done is we put redundancy in a lot of different areas in the display, so that, for instance, if the power signal is coming in from one side and there's an issue, it'll automatically route it through the other wires in the display to make it all work. If the signal has an issue getting into one of these driver boards, it'll automatically route the signal through the other direction to bypass. So we put in a lot of redundancies to make sure that the displays look wonderful, because we know that they're installed in prestigious premier locations. Nothing looks worse than a display that's broken. So we take that very, very seriously. And matter of fact, the technology of SMD is probably 10 to 1 in failure rate compared to what you have out there installed now. So the failure rate has gone down to almost nothing based on the technology that we're using today. So we're very confident that it'll look beautiful.
So you can see that our attempt to do this was a bit niche. We're trying not to kind of go average what everyone's doing. We're trying to do something much higher quality, and that will make a big difference. It's going to look a lot different.
Trustee Dudek?
I have a couple of questions. So in looking at the two designs, A and B, I'll call them. So based on your template, is the width, what is the width of A and what is the width of B?
Well, I think these were designed under the 10 by 20 look, but the dimensions would roughly be the same. I mean, they would appear the same because there's no scale from the direction that we're looking at it. So it would be, you gentlemen said that we could do 6 and some inches by, what was the width?
You're about 6.5 feet by, we can do these at 6.5 by 12.5. What we are relegated to is what you're passing around, that module is 320 millimeters. So, like they said, sort of like putting together Legos, we are relegated to keep stacking those until we get to those sizes, if that makes sense.
So then, taking that into consideration, is it fair to say that option A is probably, from end to end now I'm talking, maybe 13 to 14 feet tops?
With
The way it's designed, absolutely, I think that's
Okay.
fair
Yeah,
to
you're
say.
probably-
Instead of
more
the 20 that you're at right now would be,
Yeah, and more importantly, in design B, again, if things are the same, because I'm not talking about just the screen, I'm talking about the total width of the sign. Option B is 8 feet wider because of the way you've got it designed. So if we're looking, for something sleek,
Right.
then option A isn't as wide, and that's why I was trying to understand the dimensions. Okay. And then, so you've already covered the material on the bottom half of the sign for us, so thank you there. Going again back to option A, what is the material of the black surround and then those two horizontal brown, would look like beams?
I don't know, we would have to reach out to Paragon and see what they had intended for the design. They were the ones who created the visuals for us. Since they will be the one doing the install, we're working with them directly. And they, I don't know, I'd have to ask.
Okay. I think I would be curious to know, because you do have the black on the option B as well, but if you're putting some sort of veneer or stone, real stone, that tends to have a pretty long life. But if we're plastic for the beams and the black, that's going to be gone in the sun quickly.
Absolutely.
We're not gonna chimp on this. I can
I'm not
rest
suggesting you
assure
are. I'm
you-
just
Well, we're not
curious
gonna
what
let them
the-
either. No, I know, that's a fair question, and I can reach out to them and, send an email to Director
Okay.
Simmons.
And then the only last comment I have is relative to whatever the product will be for both the black, which is on both, and just the brown beams that's on option A. Personally, I think option A is a classier looking sign.
Yeah.
So that's all I had, Mayor.
We agree.
Trustee Gaffelli?
I've been in support of the digital sign since you came before the board several years ago, so I like it. I did have some concerns about the aesthetics, but you think you've answered all the questions other than what Trustee Dudek just brought up, so I'd want to know more about that as well. I do like A better than B.
Brian Simmons, what size is the one at Thorntons right now?
12 by 24.
Okay, thank you.
So if the size is not
Think-
terribly unappealing, and we could go slightly smaller, and that's something you guys would consider as well. I mean, that's obviously up to the village themselves. We're flexible with the size. The 10 by 20 is the industry, it's the industry standard.
Can I just say one more thing, though? If we did go with this, I would like to see the other sign eliminated sooner rather than later,
Okay.
the vinyl one.
She wants the sign up at the Metro Tracks.
We were only asking for the extension on that sign to help us pay down this sign faster. Being that we're doing the beautification on it, we are looking at spending 3 times more than the average installation is and the cost of materials. And we just did a price increase to kind of help bring that down, and that revenue from that board would allow us to pay down that board that much faster. Because I know that this is not something that you guys are aware of, but Mixed Media charges $2,000 a face, a flip over there. So they're making a ton of money. Our boards naturally go for about $300 a month. We are trying to keep our cost on this as low as possible so we can still serve the small businesses, which is what we have been geared towards since the beginning, is advertising towards small businesses and helping small businesses like Eggville and other restaurants in the area that utilize our boards still be able to maintain their ability to advertise. And that's just why we're asking for the extension on that. I mean, I very much understand where you're coming from. In order for us to keep, we would like to target at no more than $1,200 a month.
Ideally, 800 to 1,000.
That's even more where we'd like to keep it, which the average turnaround payoff on a digital is supposed to be 3 years when you cap it out at its max, and its max would be charging $2,000 a month. So we're looking at then, instead of taking a 3-year loan, we're looking at taking a 5 to 6 year loan just to be able to meet the needs of our current community without making them pay for the increase of the beautification and the more clear digital.
Well, I know it's just something that you guys mentioned, that you'd be willing to do that. So, again, I think the aesthetics of that billboard is, to me, is just very unappealing.
Oh, yeah.
And I think what you have presented here looks fantastic. I really do. So, nice job on that, and thank you for working with the staff on the brick, because I think that was at a really nice touch.
Sharp.
If you'd like us to, if you guys are willing to entertain the idea of keeping that sign and having the same, we're happy to accommodate as you guys see fit. It's an open discussion. It's not this or that. If you want the sign up on the tracks to match the same, we can look into having that done as well in order to keep that sign. It's up to you guys. It's
When
not like
will the
we're-
lease run out on the one on the tracks?
It was supposed to go into effect February 1st. They've had some delays with design, so they won't go up until March 1st, which means it'll be March of 2024 of next year. And again, it is for local businesses.
Thank you.
Trustee Weinhammer? I'm going to give a shot at this. I think it's refreshing to see this. I think we're spending a lot of money this year trying to beautify the downtown, the entryways. It's something that's been a stickler to us for a long time. We've had this conversation before. I think the time is right. I was not a big proponent of digital billboards from the get-go, and to be completely honest, I've evolved. Not as stubborn as people. Surprisingly, I'm a nice guy, by the way. Anyway, no, I think that this would be a great addition to the downtown, or the entryway into the community, into the downtown. I love the fact that you tied it into our our new village entryway signs. As you see, this looks a lot like our building here and our metro station, which are all within the last 3 years. So I think the continuity is really good. One of the things how do you regulate the brightness on this?
There's, basically, we have photocells, 2 photocells that are on this, so they were all, and what we do is we set a brightness, and what will happen is those 2 photocells maintain that brightness day or night, so it doesn't come on at night to where it's blaring at you. It dims it down to allow, so it's not, and I know exactly what you're getting at. I have one up the street from my house that I cringe every time I go by. It's not one of mine, but, it just, it's not set up so it's gonna be blinding you. So it's always set. If there is an issue ever, there's always cameras monitoring. So either they will see it, or we have what we call our knock. They will pick up on it, and they'll shut it down, or they will shut the brightness down.
And does it still work the way that it worked when I came and see you guys 8 years ago, where basically you can set a certain percentage above the ambient light?
Correct.
Above or below, yeah. So, we could go, okay, it looks too bright at night right now, and, you guys are fielding some calls, and you guys get a hold of us and go, don't like this, take it down a little bit. And I go, okay, we've taken it down 10%, and then you guys go, this looks better, call stop, done. And it will always be that way then.
And you have to make those adjustments possibly a little bit, depending on where this is located. Is there a bunch of ambient light around it in the evenings to where, to where it doesn't look as bright, or like I mentioned, the one out by my home, there is no ambient light around it. They've made no effort to dim it down, and I'll be honest, it blinds people, and I have said my piece with that company.
I get it. That's something that I think is important. The one that's up there right now, the new one, that is so ridiculously bright. I mean,
They
you
don't
could
use
see
ambient
that.
lighting.
No,
it's-
and the other thing, remember, is we would be doing this with SMD, so we don't have to push, what they're trying to do is push extra lighting into it to get their message across, which is almost contradictory to what you should be doing. You should actually turn this down a little bit more so it's not blinding people, because what will happen when you turn, especially Throughhole up, that's where you start, that's what you do when you try to get white light on something, is you just crank the LEDs as high as you can crank them to get that white, and that's not what you want to do.
And when you go too low with it, that's when it gets super grainy.
Right.
Yeah. With us and, with Throughhole.
With
that is.
Throughhole.
Yeah.
The other thing too, this was our proposed location. If the village has talked and they have a different location that they would like to see a digital at, as opposed to one of these, as opposed to this location, that's a conversation that we could have as well.
Appreciate that, but I think the board we're
I'm
satisfied with what the one word is. We like the idea of the other one coming down. Eventually, I got to think about that curveball you threw. But once you, assuming that the village approves a project like this, from start to finish, when would be an estimated, I mean, I'm not going to hold it to you, maybe by a day or two, but the completion date? The reason I ask that is to tie into Trustee Cavelli's concern about keeping the other sign up. And if this is going to take, 6 or 8 months to get done, you're almost at the end of that contract cycle.
Yep.
You're abiding by your contract. We got local business that's, benefiting from this. I'd be willing to do that. Our goal is to really make an impact on the village when you come in. By taking that down sooner than later would be better, but maybe Trustee Cavelli would be amicable to that if that's the way you go, because I don't know how long a process like this takes.
So there's a couple thoughts on that. One, first and foremost, in addition to making sure that I'm following the advice and directives from you all, we have to have a deeper discussion with the landowner and make sure that, expectations on both their side and us are met, because, we weren't sure how this was going to go last time tonight. And then to answer the question directly, that will largely depend on the manufacturing process with these guys, and it will depend on your designer that comes and installs everything. So I can give you that answer once those 3 people give me those answers.
Good, that's fair.
And doesn't it have to go to the ZPA as well?
Yes.
Correct.
So you've got a zoning process to go through as well.
Honestly, I can't see it going up before September, August, September, by the time everything was even potentially
Yeah, that's why I said 6 to 8 months. It seems like.
It's quite
that-
a process.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, it's quite a process when you're making it look nice. If you just throw it up, you can do it real quick, but, yeah.
I think we're willing to wait for something that looks nice. I just want to throw something. Trustee Walrath could not be with us tonight. He's traveling for work. But he wanted to say that he's in favor of option B on the Liberty Outdoor signage replacement. He feels that the proposal best fits with the UDO and future changes coming to our downtown district.
Okay.
So you got somebody that's there. But just for a consensus, where does the board feel we are on this? And if you are in favor of this, what option are you leaning towards?
I've already said option A.
Okay, just making sure. Just,
Straight A's
we'll see.
so far.
I'm in favor of it, and option A or B is fine with me.
Okay. And I'm in favor of option A. I thought that looked nice from the get-go. I think the other one is, it'll be too long, or whatever.
Just-
I
Go ahead.
do want to add that I agree with your comment about the extension. I mean, I can appreciate going down as fast as possible, too. And part of me would like to have that. But if it truly is going to take you till the fall almost to put this up, I would like to see the train track one go down at the same time your new one goes up. So the timing
Or at least
is,
as close as possible.
yeah, as close as possible.
Okay,
I would be okay with that.
cool, thank you.
And just quickly, because no one really addressed it, out of curiosity, if there's an emergency, how long does it take to get a notice out, if there's something happening?
So if I populate it in the software, how quick does it populate to the sign?
Pretty much instantly.
Okay.
So as quick as you can get it to me?
As quick as
and
you can
I
get it, yes.
on
So
my cell
to me, that's a
phone,
great,
yeah.
that's a great tool for our community if something is going on, that an emergency alert can go out or anything that's happening.
We do this a lot. A lot of billboard companies will do like, say, Amber Alerts.
Right.
And it's
I've seen that on
populated
90.
Because you want them up as quickly as possible. It populates instantly.
Yes, and our display has pre-notification triggers, so if, for instance, the power supplies is starting to get too hot or something along those lines, it will notify us before there's any failure on the display. That's specifically in case there are Amber Alerts and things of that nature, we know the display is always operating, and it provides us these pre-alert notifications so that we can go there and service them before the displays actually fail.
Fantastic.
Before I forget, other than talking to the landowner, talking to these guys about the manufacturing turnaround, and talking to the builder that you guys use and getting their turnaround, is there any other action items you need from us before the next time we have a conversation?
Just what the material will be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So the zoning process, we will have more detailed plans that would have the materials called out. So when there would be a public hearing before the ZPA, and then that would make a recommendation to the village board for final approval of the sign. So at that point, we would need drawings that would call out what the materials would be, so that's clarified in the approvals. And that
Actually-
process, you're looking at about 2 months from submittal to approval, so
Okay.
that's, can be worked into
That's built in.
your timeline as well.
Okay.
Mhm.
Got it.
I did just have one question. Being that we want to be as mindful as we can with the ambient light, and Tom was saying that lights in the surrounding area may be a problem. If Thorntons is, if we're having an issue with their lights being too bright, is that something that, in order for us to make our sign light go down, that you guys have some ability to help them maybe tone down their lights? So our ambient light can go down?
Yeah, so the sign code would have provisions for how bright your sign can be, specifically within our code.
Like with knit?
It's not with nit, it's measured based on the size of your sign and how far away you are from the sign. But there are provisions in the code for ambient lighting levels that would adjust, from that standpoint. The adjacent property, their maximum foot candle should be at a property line, meet our code from how they were constructed. So they would, they currently comply with our ordinances as far as how bright their property can be from that standpoint. But as far as the sign, how far away you are from the sign face, that would be a measurement that would be calculated within our code. It's calculated in there.
Understood. And you guys use a gun to magnify that, or straight mathematics?
There's a photocell meter that we have
Got
for
it.
that. Mhm.
Okay.
One other question I have, is this going to be back-to-back, or is there that, like?
It's a wedge.
It's a wedge?
Yeah. Or at least
How will that wedge fit in with the design? Will that fit within the pillars that you have? How is
Well,
that going to be?
I guess the best way to say that is, how would you like it? I mean, we're at that place where that's a discussion that can be had.
So that would make it 3 pillars instead of 2?
You know, we could also do a straight back-to-back.
Well, I think that would be something we'd have to consider. Well, there's no residential behind, well, there is residential behind there in the back.
Right.
But we've got to be cognizant of the surrounding neighbors and that, how would that affect, you know?
Sure.
Normally, you do have that wedge so that, you know, you can kind of see it. So I didn't really think about that till I was looking at this, I'm like, yeah. So is there a way, how big of a wedge would it be? Would that be able to be, with the pillars, maybe be a little bit bigger in the back so that you could accommodate the wedge? I just don't want to have it be like this major structure that's hanging out there. You know, because it's a beautiful, I mean, it's a very nicely wooded area. It will fit in really cool. It's adjacent to a business that's right there. We're hoping to attract a little more business across the street from there. So any way that we could, you know, help, you know, new businesses come in, and that would be appreciated. But I just want to know, maybe that's another question we can ask about the construction with the wedge and how big that back pillar has to be.
Sure. You know, there, and I'm not real briefed on it, but I know there is some technology in the industry that allows you to angle the actual LEDs so that it can't be seen from past that angle, which would prevent any residential neighborhoods from seeing it and things like that. Something probably for a different time to discuss, but that is a potential.
Okay. Well, just make a note of that and see if you can get us some information on that. But I think that a very successful meeting. I'm thrilled about this. I think it'll be a good opportunity for us, a nice fresh start, clean up the entryways, which we've been working so hard to do. So do you have any other questions for us?
No, thanks for having us.
Okay.
We have
Well,
one quick,
Sure.
Kim asked me a question that I don't have an answer to, so I'll volunteer to ask the question. Below the end of what looks like a flagstone or whatever, the lighter material, is that going then right to the ground, or is there some sort of support structure and that's put on top of it? It's like a
It would
post
go
or
in,
something?
it would go like around the support structure.
So it'll go
you-
all the way
yeah,
to the
It goes all the
ground.
way to the ground. So you won't even see, because of the dip in, because of the drop.
Right, the street,
You're
yeah.
not even gonna really even see the bottom part of the sign,
Okay.
unless you're walking along the gate.
Okay, and the other thing that you brought up that throws the monkey wrench is the whole wedge thing. So I do think that's kind of important. Personally, I like back-to-back. I think the wedge looks a little tacky, personally.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on directional.
Sure.
Directionally.
I agree. I kind of leaning more towards the back-to-back myself, but we're going to keep this a free-flowing conversation. I think you've got a good start. It's unanimous here to continue to the next step. So just continue working with Director Simmons on the next steps, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
job.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have a discussion regarding the proposed minor changes to the Schoolhouse Apartments planned unit development. Director Simmons, you're up again.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. The item for discussion tonight is just a quick review of proposed modifications to the Schoolhouse Apartments PUD. As the board recalls, late last year, the village approved the redevelopment and rehab of the existing senior center property. And through the permitting process, the permit, there's become aware, the staff and the developer, of a sanitary sewer line that transverses through the property that would affect the original design that was approved by the board. If you can advance the next slide. Proposal this evening is just a quick review of some changes proposed to the site plan. Within the PUD ordinance, there are certain modifications that the board has granted my position the authority to approve administratively and under certain conditions that would not increase the density of a PUD or increase the height of buildings in a PUD or reduce open space and things along those lines. So Based off staff's review, we believe that the proposed revisions do meet with the minor changes within the PUD ordinance. We just wanted to provide a image of the plan this evening for your review to make sure that the board concurs with that assessment so that we can process it administratively versus sending the project back through the zoning process. So the two images that are shown on this slide currently show the original site plan that was approved by the village board late last year versus the revised site plan and how it is impacted by the sanitary sewer line that runs through the property. As you can see, the red dashed line, which is on the eastern half of the property, is where that sanitary line is located at. It is not within an easement, so it was not identified in the plat of survey for the property, so it was not caught until developers started to get in more depth with their plans. So as proposed, the three flat buildings that were located in the southwest corner of the property are proposed to be relocated on either side of the existing senior center building. So the density, number of units, the size, design of those buildings would not change at all. And then the garages, which were situated along the eastern property line, have been shifted to the southern property line. So total number of parking spaces, units have not changed in the revised plan. And then also the amount of green space has increased with this revision as well. Generally, for discussion purposes this evening, we're just looking to see if the board concurs with the assessment of this being a minor change and authorizing myself to make those changes to the permit process.
Since I let Rick go last the first time, I'm going to let Rick Walrath go first this time. His comments are, I'm in favor of the proposed minor changes to Schoolhouse Apartment plan development, but would request elevations of the new alignment of the buildings. He's got them. With the view looking south from Main Street and east from School Street. I believe that the new alignment will provide a cleaner look for the lot, and with the garages behind the living units, this will fit the design and layout of other properties in the neighborhood. So that's his thought. I love this idea. This looks much better than the first one. But this is what we had talked about originally, and things work in a weird way. So I think the neighborhood will be happy with the way that looks. It'll be more conducive to what they're looking for. I think it looks like a really cool little development now. It's all contained, and it looks very well planned out. Trustee Weinhammer, do you have any comments?
I agree with you. I really like this, and I like the privacy in the back where it butts up to the neighbors too. So I think it's great.
I agree 100%. I think that was the biggest concern we heard from neighbors was the privacy. I think this addresses it, but I also think that it's a great look. So I'm very happy with it.
Happy with it?
Same.
I like this one better as well.
I do. Home run again. But well, thank you. Any other comments about this? Okay, I think you have the direction.
Yep, we do. Thank you.
Well, it's that time again. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 6:50.